I've been involved in prison ministry for a long time, but until I joined my current parish and near the same time became aware of the Catholic Prison Ministries Coalition, I was always the lone wolf in my volunteer capacity. So learning to develop this ministry as a parish-based ministry and to do so with CPMC's guidance and resources has given me such a deeper path for my own faith formation and a way to elevate the ministry to include our entire church family so that we bring intentionality into our efforts as a faith community to bridge the gap between prison walls and church walls. So that's no easy task for any church community, but doing so with CPMC's formation tools and resources has been a real blessing for all of us.
Good evening, and welcome to the Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition's fall event, Reclaiming Wholeness, Addiction, Recovery, and Community. Thank you for being here. I'm Father George Williams, one of the founders of CPMC, and we want to say thank you first to our sponsors for this evening. Our headline sponsor is Catholic Charities USA. We're also grateful for the support of the Association of U.S. Catholic Priests, Dismas Ministry, the Word Among Us Partners, the Jesuit Urban Center of San Francisco, and Colby Prison Ministry of Texas. In this special event tonight, CPMC is lifting up a topic of particular concern to any of you who are involved in any sort of correctional ministry, prison, jail, detention ministry, aftercare. We're talking about addiction and incarceration, and anyone who's worked in the criminal justice system knows that how many of the people involved in the criminal justice system are caught in some form of addiction. We're going to hear from 4 people tonight who have been impacted personally by addiction, and also hear about their ministry, their administration of clinical treatment, and their own life experiences and suggestions for us as ministers. This event's being recorded and it's going to be made available on our CPMC website. Now, as a national coalition of organizations and ministries, CPMC endeavors to recruit, train, and empower those who are called to correctional or detention ministry. We seek to provide opportunities for ministers to learn best practices and share effective models of accompaniment to those impacted by incarceration, those who are incarcerated, their families, the victims of crime, and the communities to which individuals will return. So before I introduce our moderator for the evening, I'd like to put forward a definition of addiction as defined by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. They say addiction is defined as a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite adverse consequences. It's considered a brain disorder because it involves functional changes to brain circuits involved in reward, stress, and self-control. Those changes may last a long time after a person has stopped taking drugs. And of course, there are also process addictions, and our panelists may talk about that as well. But this definition is a workable definition for us tonight because it's really looking at substance abuse, which I believe is at the heart of what most people incarcerated are struggling with. It's critical to know that, like diabetes, heart disease, asthma, and other chronic diseases, there's no cure for addiction, but it can be treated and managed with the right tools. Developed on a case-by-case basis, treatment plans vary, but research shows that when they're used together, behavioral therapy, treatment medication, and community support. This leads to low relapse and recidivism rates. For those who are incarcerated, that means that the reentry process begins on day one of incarceration, not the day they get out. The prison or jail ministry plays a crucial role in listening to, accompanying, and connecting the affected individual to the resources and organizations dedicated to this vitally needed work. So tonight we're going to hear about some proven programming and listen to stories of ongoing success. Also, it bears saying that addiction is a non-discriminating disease. We know that those who struggle with the disease of addiction are more than likely to end up incarcerated. Of the 2.2 million people we incarcerate in the United States, over 1.3 million of them have a substance use disorder. That's 60% of the incarcerated population, compared to the general US population, of which 5% struggle with a substance use disorder. So such a reality needs a response, and the gospel demands a response of us. So to share with us what the church's response might be to this crisis, I'd like to welcome Cardinal Joseph Tobin of the Archdiocese of Newark. Cardinal Tobin has served the Archdiocese of Newark now for 6 years in worship through action, as inspired by the Redemptorist mission to serve the poor and the most spiritually abandoned. As a champion for a church that goes to the margins, Cardinal Tobin advances Pope Francis's vision of the church as a field hospital, a place that tends the wounds. As member of the College of Cardinals, he's been appointed to numerous congregations, including the Congregation for Catholic Education, the Pontifical Council for Culture, and the Congregation for Bishops. In addition to his tenure in the Cardinalate, he served as the Superior General for the Redemptorists from 1997 till 2009. So Cardinal Tobin, thank you so much for being here with us and your willingness to moderate the discussion with our panelists. The floor is yours now to open us in prayer and share your journey and reflection for the church's role in this ministry.
I ask you all to quiet your hearts and join with me in turning to the source of our life and our destiny. God of love, when you came among us, you called for the scroll in your hometown, and you opened it to a place where you found a description of your power among us. You said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and for this he's anointed me. He sent me to bring good news to the afflicted, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives, release to prisoners, to announce a year of favor from the Lord, the day of vindication by our God, to comfort all who mourn, to place on those who mourn in Zion a diadem instead of ashes, to give them the oil of gladness instead of mourning, a glorious mantle instead of a faint spirit." Lord, we are gathered in that spirit, and we claim that mantle. We ask you to drive the faintness from our hearts before the darkness that can claim human beings. And we pray, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, but the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. I thank you for that introduction, Father Williams, and I guess I say everybody gets one your eminence, and you may have just used yours. So the name I was baptized is Joseph. And I like to present myself with the words of the book of Genesis. I'm Joseph, your brother. And I feel that strongly in correctional institutions. So Joseph, your brother, as a brother that knows the chains of addiction and the darkness of active use, that undeservedly has found the grace of sobriety, and a day at a time has lived it for 35 years. And to know the solidarity that no one gets sober and stays sober by themselves. And certainly the higher power, and certainly the higher power that is manifest in our fellow pilgrims. One of the most interesting religious experiences for me is that of pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is found in most major religions. The idea we were born in some place and we're going somewhere else. And we're not going alone. And the holiness is found not when you get there, but with the people you meet on the way. In the fellowship, we talk about the road to happy destiny. And for a lot of the sisters and brothers that I've known over the 24 hours, that road begins in incarceration. It begins because people from the fellowship, people from faith communities, thought enough to meet them there and to let them identify and to bring some humanity to a system that works very hard to strip people of their humanity. I've worked from county jails to death row in Terre Haute, Indiana. And when this country felt it needed to execute 5 prisoners a couple of years ago, 3 of them I would count as friends. Almost all of them were still suffering a form of mental illness. Right now in New Jersey, I'm privileged to be part of a group called New Jersey Reentry. What we try to do is unload the dice that leads people back to active use and recidivism through treatment, through support, through vocational training, and just one-on-one care. For me, the liberating force of God's grace is not a theory. It's an experience. It's one that I live every day. And the motto of my religious family, the Redemptorist Missionaries, comes from the 130th Psalm. It's, with him there is abundant redemption. For the last 35 years, I've come to know in an ever deepening way what abundance means. And the only way I keep it is by giving it away. So we've got a really good program. My job is to just keep it going and not get in the way. So I'm going to turn it over to Father George, who's going to kind of tee everything up.
Great. Thank you, Cardinal Tobin. I'd like to introduce our 3 panelists tonight. First, we have with us Lisa DeLaura. She joined just as an addiction program manager in April of 2019, and she can explain what JUST stands for. Lisa is a licensed social worker and a certified addictions counselor, as well as a recovery coach and private practitioner. She received her master's degree at Aurora University in social work. She has experience working in extended residential care, outpatient, DUI services, and parenting for over 8 years. Lisa has a passion for working with individuals struggling with substance use disorders, helping them rebuild their lives, their families, and their communities. She's been involved in the addiction community for over 30 years. So welcome, Lisa. We also have Evelene Duhart, who is a native of North Carolina. She spent the last several years as an advocate, case manager, and recovery specialist with N Street Village in Washington, D.C., working with women who are in recovery and seeking housing. Over 12 years ago, Evelene was introduced to the Ignatian Spirituality Project, an organization that invites people recovering from homelessness and addiction to encounter God's love, hope, and healing through spiritual companionship that transforms lives. And when asked why she's here tonight, Evelene responded by saying, "I bring to this conversation my experience as a 71-year-old Black woman recovering from homelessness, drug addiction, and life struggles. But most of all, I'm an individual willing and open to change. I have firsthand understanding of the disease of addiction and a calling to accompany others in their struggles. I cannot fix others. I've just been called to show up." And we also have our third panelist is James Wahlberg. He's the executive director of the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation. He's been working in and around the field of addiction recovery for nearly 30 years. Jim's personal experiences with recovery and commitment to his faith led him to create a number of short films on the topic of addiction, including recently released What About the Kids? And the critically acclaimed If Only. That's been shown to hundreds of thousands of people nationwide in venues ranging in size from classrooms to arenas. And he's recently completed his memoir, The Big Hustle, a Boston street kid's story of addiction and redemption. So the Spirit continues to guide Jim in his journey of recovery and helping others find hope in an often seemingly hopeless situation. He and his family are active members of St. Bernadette Parish in Hollywood, Florida. Before I turn it back to the panelists and Cardinal Tobin, I'd want to let those of you joining us tonight know that during the course of the presentations coming up, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to share or pose to the panelists, please write them in the chat feature, and then I will monitor those. And when we'll have time toward the end for them to answer some of your questions. So thank you all for being here again, to our panelists. And Cardinal Tobin, I pass it back to you to moderate this important discussion.
Thanks, Father George. And looking at my screen, the first face I see is Lisa's. So Lisa, you're leading off. I understand that the population that Just has been serving has experienced a remarkable drop in recidivism. And that's good news, but tell us more.
Hi, well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for me to share our ministry at Just of DuPage, which, to answer the question, stands for Justice, Understanding, Service, and Teaching. We basically meet them where they're at. You know, the individuals come to us voluntarily. It's not mandated. The programs are not mandated. And we offer over 70 classes per week. And we do this with the help of about 120 volunteers, about 7 staff members. How come our program is successful is because we walk with them through every phase of their life. We look at it from a very holistic approach. I mean, we could go in and just treat their addiction and offer some treatment classes, and that would be great and that would be helpful. But then when they leave jail, they have no place to live. They have no employment, they have broken relationships with their families, maybe lacking education. So we address each of that. We have several different departments: education, spiritual, vocational, educational, and reentry. Reentry is the one thing that we've been focused on pretty heavily now. I remember one time when I first got there, I saw a gentleman who I knew from working on the outside, and he was leaving. I'm like, "That's great, you're leaving." And he's like, he just stood there at the slider of the jail. And he's like, "I have no place to go." And it just broke my heart. And it's like, well, what can we do? What can we do differently to help these individuals once they walk out that door? And a big part of it is we stay connected. We have a reentry specialist that we have meet them literally at the doors when they leave sometimes. We've connected the individuals with treatment centers, halfway houses. We've brought in probation and specialty courts to help them get those services upon leaving, to field all their questions. And we also, like you said, it starts while we're in there. Once we get connected with an individual, we try to get them as many classes as possible. They can take up to 3 classes a day. And we often sit with them individually as well. we kind of develop a sort of a treatment plan, but we work with them and see what their needs are. We partner with outside organizations. We have the local college of DuPage, which offers horticulture classes, which gives them college credit, and they can also do GED and ESL. We have parenting classes, we have anger management, building confidence, life skills. So all these areas of development that they didn't necessarily even know they were lacking in. I mean, I've worked with so many individuals who came to us and they didn't even realize they had an addiction because that was just their norm in their community. We also address the gang involvement and the gang issues. One thing that we're extremely proud of, that we've been able to bring in tattoo removal and cover up into the facility. And once a gang member gets a tattoo removed or cover up, they can't go back to that lifestyle. And we help get them connected with employment and with education and with housing. So we really do see it as an opportunity to work with the individuals. We realize, I mean, treatment is great. I mean, 30 days for a lot of individuals is not enough time. They're sitting there and they have all the time in the world to think and process things. So we try to give them as much information and as much resources and tools so they can better themselves, whether it be spiritually or focusing on their addiction or their mental health. Because this is when they're broken, we try to come in and help them fix themselves. Kind of like Evelene talked about in her bio, it's like, we're not fixing them, we're helping them fix themselves and help them get connected to the resources and the tools that they need, that they can carry out once they leave those doors. Because if they don't change while they're in there, they're just going to go back to the same lifestyle that they were living. And we know that, and we see that. I mean, the average recidivism rate is 66%. We stay connected with them. We encourage them to call us and, help each other as well. We do a class where we have formerly incarcerated individuals come in and speak. And they're like, hey, they're telling the guys, if you're getting out, call me, stay connected. Individuals write us, we write them back. They call our office. We just actually had one gentleman call yesterday. He's moving and he just wanted to let us know that he's moving and to thank us for helping him. And we get connected with their families. We do storybooks so individuals can stay connected with their children. And this is all run by just a handful of people, but a ton of volunteers. And we're so blessed to have the support of the community and the support of the sheriff that we're able to do this inside of the county jail. And the individuals themselves, encourage us to keep doing this because we see the changes while they're in there. We see those light bulb moments where they get it. And, we look at them from a strength perspective, and we help them visualize their life outside of these walls, because many of them come to us and they just identify as alcoholics or addicts. That's all they are. Like, why bother changing? I mean, we've had so many individuals that just kind of gave up. They're like, I'm just going to go to prison. It's easier. It's like, that's great that it's easier, but how about what can we do to help you, make changes in your life? And we've had a lot of people that we've got connected with drug court or, task probation so that they can go back out there, and they'll call us, 3-6 months later and, tell us, how well they're doing. And, word of mouth, the guys encourage each other. So the individuals that are coming to class actually go back to the pods and, help the other inmates in their pods. I mean, we have one pod we dedicated to a reentry pod. We work a little more closely with these individuals. And, they do classes on their own. They're in their pods, they're in their cells, and they're doing book studies and AA meetings. We also, that's another thing too, to partner them in the community. We've been able to have members from the AA and NA community be sponsors for these gentlemen. We have an area where it's not recorded so they can do their 4th and 5th step work. We have a lot of, mentors from the church communities as well. We have recovery coaches, and we even get them connected with job coaches on the outside too. We partner with such organizations that do job training on the outside, promise them jobs. We have, CDL and tow truck driving, and we're getting welding into our facility. So they have skills, and it builds their confidence, and it makes them feel human, like human beings. And I mean, we've even had individuals say, like when they're taking the classes and stuff, sometimes that they forget that they're in jail, just because they feel welcomed, and they support each other in our classrooms and just build each other up.
Lisa, you have a very rich and challenging program and already challenging circumstances. Were you able to carry that on during the pandemic?
We were set back a little bit. We weren't allowed to have our volunteers come in. However, being in recovery myself, I was still able to continue the AA and NA meetings because I qualify as part of those 12-step programs. And our chaplain at the time was able to do some of the spiritual classes. So like I said, typically we do about 70 classes a week with our volunteers. We were still able to do about 20, 30 classes a week during the pandemic. We had, DuPage is specific. We had to do a lot of rearranging of things, but we still made it work. We made sure at least everybody got like 2 or 3 classes that was interested in participating.
Fabulous. Evelene, I've heard about the Ignatian spirituality, and when I was working in Indiana, it was there, but I never really got down to the nuts and bolts. Now, you've been both a participant and a leader. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Once again, as Lisa stated, thank you all so much for asking me to be a part of this, because it only offers an opportunity to enrich my process and my recovery. ISP, the Ignatian Spiritual Project, I was introduced to the ISP. It was about 17 years ago. I went to the very first meeting that they had here in the DC, and I was kind of unsure about going to that meeting at first, but once I got there and received a welcome greeting from the members of the teams that were starting, it's been a benefit to me throughout the process. The Ignatian Spiritual Project, ISP, we work with men, we work with women or people that identify, that have experienced homelessness or addiction. And we take women on retreat, anyone that's, offer them an opportunity for companionship and to encounter God's love, His hope, and His healing through that companionship, and that helps transform their lives. We offer women, people to go on retreats, different cities. We have ISP is in many cities and in the United States. I'm not exactly sure how many, but different cities have different way of things that they do, but they all offer these retreats that we take people on, and it gives not only does it support the people that go on to retreat, the participants, but it also offers the facilitators and the team members an opportunity to get to recognize their feelings and their emotions. See how you experience it allows everyone an opportunity to connect. Recovery is very important. My thinking is that for people in recovery to be able to connect, to make that connection in some way with the individual that's sitting in front of them or that's with them. This is what one of the things that ISP offers. They give you that companionship, someone that you can talk to. You can give them a call. We different cities, they not only, once you go on a retreat with ISP, they encourage the different facilities not to continue to send the same individuals on the retreat, but to offer it to others. And once they have had go on that retreat, the facilities reach out to those different organizations in the cities and do a meeting with them, maybe weekly or monthly. Here in DC, we do what we call a Grounded in God meeting with all of the women that have gone on a retreat with us. an opportunity to gather with the team members and to be able to just kind of talk about what their experience was like on the retreat. We, any concerns that they may have, any thoughts that they may have, any feedback that they may have to offer us, and what do they think, or we could do different, or if there's anything that we could do differently. We during the pandemic, we were not able to go into the programs to do this, but we maintained that connection through Zoom. When we offered, we would still hold those meetings monthly, and those that the women that was able to come to those meetings, we would it was such a welcoming thing to be able to just see them still being a part of, and still having that need and that desire to want to be to maintain the connection. It's difficult in some times, because a lot of the people that we serve, they once they leave the programs, we lose contact, because the information that we may have for them might be a phone number for the program itself, or their cell number, their phone numbers change. So that creates a difficult it's kind of difficult for us to maintain that connection in that way. But as a group, we get together and we talk about things that we need to do, and how we can go back, reach out and touch these people and get them once again to come back, to just talk to them and find out how they're doing, what's going on with them. Where are they? Do they need any support, or is there anything that we can offer, or just to call them to just say hi? There have been some repeats that we have had. My very first retreat that I went on as a participant, and the women from Baltimore came in as the facilitators and also as a witness, which also was an opportunity for me once again to broaden my foundation. And the next retreat that I went on, I went in as a witness, which had always been nervous for me to have to start a conversation and talking about people and telling them sharing me with others. And then after that, after being a witness, they invited me to be a team member. And I've been a team member ever since then. For the last 16, 17 years, I've been a team member. And the connection for me, ISP offers me an opportunity to not live in, to change my thinking. It has offered me an opportunity to be able to sit with me, to be able to connect with my higher power, the God of my understanding. I came into ISP when they first introduced me to it. I came into it thinking that someone was going to preach religion to me, which kind of scared me a little bit, because the religion was always my parents' and my grandparents' religion, which was not necessarily the sweetest, the most loving God all the time. So I came in and I got to meet these women. I sat and I listened, because my recovery, being in recovery, I was introduced to spirituality early in my recovery, but coming into ISP, that spirituality, now I understand that God does not necessarily preach religion to me. It's not about religion. It's about me being able to connect with myself and to be accepting and to love me, and being able to offer what he has given me, and what those that I've allowed to come into my life, being able to give it back. And this is what we do. We offer our time, we offer space, we offer community. We just sit with individuals and allow them to talk about whatever it is that they need to talk about. As Lisa said, we just meet them where they are. You know, whatever it is going on with them and wherever they are in their process. This is where we have to meet them and be okay with that and allow them to be able to process their emotions and their feelings. That is a hard place for, especially my thinking is that for women to be able to process those emotions and those feelings with being in recovery. I work with women today. This is the work that I do. I sit with women, I meet with women, I give them my Google number. They can call me at any point in time that they're struggling. If they just need to just have someone listen and to hear to them. And this is what I do today, because I came into recovery having all the answers and knowing exactly how to fix people. And so I was doing that very early. And the people that was there, when I walked into those rooms, they would look at me and they would laugh and they would give me a hug, something that I needed. And they would say, Evelene, just keep coming back. And I couldn't figure out why they said that, but now today I know, because my continuing to come back has allowed me to be in this process now for almost 21 years, to learn, to grow, and to be open and to be welcoming and to be able to sit with others and to give back what Lisa, Jane, Jim, and others have given to me. And so this is what I do. This is what ISP does, and we just ISP is a valuable tool for anyone that is struggling. Especially, I would think that it would be something very valuable to be able to take into the prisons, into the jails, and to be able to just allow someone to just sit and talk. I've had an opportunity to take meetings into the jails here in DC, and that was early in my process. And it was rewarding to me to be able to sit with those women and to be able to just listen and to hear their stories, just to be in their presence. It was scary going in the door, but it was very rewarding for me when I walked out of there. And ISP offers that opportunity, and it's a tool, a valuable tool that Karen and others have offered me, and I'm always in support of it. Always in support of it.
Thank you so much, Evelene. That was fabulous. When talking about the Ignatian Spirituality Project and what it's done for you.
Yes.
I have to say, you remind me of a lady I knew many moons ago in Pontiac, Michigan. Her name was Mother Annabelle, and she would run a meeting on Sunday nights. And at the beginning of the meeting, she'd look around with a big smile and she'd say, on Sunday morning, I go to church to save my soul. On Sunday evenings, I come to this meeting to save my derriere. But Mother Annabelle didn't speak French, so she got a more graphic word. We all got the drift. So thank you for how this your given has also touched you in such a holistic way. Now, Jim, the bar is pretty high here. It's been set by our two sisters, so have at it.
Cardinal, thank you. And thank you for not only for hosting and participating, but your honesty and your willingness to share your journey. It's critical, I think. And before I get started, I just want to thank Lisa and Evelene for their commitment and their willingness to serve. My story is a little bit different. I come from the other end of this thing. I come from the end of receiving the gifts that many of the people that are on this call are bringing into the prisons. I was a prisoner, and I was, as we this event got started, I did a little sheet and I looked at how many participants there were. 160 people. It's 160 people on a Tuesday night, all with a common goal, right? How can we serve others? How can we serve the forgotten? How can we bring recovery to this population that has been thrown away and discarded? And man, if I ever knew while I was in prison that there was 160 people together talking about how could they help me, that would touch me so deeply. I'm a guy that I picked up a drink and a drug at a very, very young age. I come from Boston. I'm the middle child of 9 kids. I think many people I was broken. There was something about me that was broken, and I was always in search of love and acceptance, but I wasn't looking for it at home. I was looking for it anywhere else, so I picked up a drink at a very young age. By the time I was 12, I was a ward of the state, which meant that the state was making decisions about my life, no longer my parents. And, I was a series of being homeless, being in group homes, detention centers, halfway houses, until I turned 17 and I got arrested for an armed robbery, and off to state prison I went, and I was a full-blown addict and alcoholic. And I weighed 135, 140 pounds. And I was in maximum security state prison. And I did what an addict and an alcoholic does. I survived. I was a chameleon. I became what the other prisoners thought I should be, right? And so I became more dangerous, more violent, more crazy, if you will. And I remember I was in the hole in maximum security state prison, which is prison within prison. And I was there for a long time, for a number of years, 23-hour-a-day lockup. And my mother came to visit me, and they brought me out to the visiting room, and I had shackles and waist chains on. And my mother looked at me, and I could see that she didn't recognize me as her own child, right? I was no longer the child that she raised. I was a grown man, but I was a very dangerous and sad and broken person. And my mother left that prison that day and crying and praying in the parking lot and saying to God that I will never visit my child in prison again. I did 5 years on that prison sentence that I probably should have did 2 on. I got out after 5 years, and the first thing I did was pick up a drink. And I drank and drugged as much as I possibly could for the 6 months that I lasted on the streets. And I was under arrest again with brand new charges that would bring me a brand new 6 to 9 year prison sentence. And I was back in prison, and the only thing I knew is I didn't want to do 9 years. I couldn't do 9 years. If I did 9 years, I was going to be older than 30 when I get out. And that was prehistoric. And so I started to do things to create an illusion, right? That's all I was interested in doing. I was not interested in changing. I was not interested in recovery. I was not interested in my faith. I was just interested in getting out. And so I started doing things to create the illusion that I was trying to get better. And I remember I started going to meetings, and I couldn't just go to the meetings. I had to be in charge of the meetings, so I set up the chairs, I made the coffee, I did the chips, I signed the papers that to identify them as someone who came to the meeting. And there was a guy, his name was Greg D. He was the outside sponsor for that particular prison group. And every Tuesday night he came to the prison, and every Tuesday night he would try to give me his phone number. And he'd be like, give me a call. And he was just trying to carry a message, right? He was just trying to stay sober. And he knew that the only way he was going to be able to stay sober is if he gave it away. It's the only way to keep it. And I got to tell you that the feeling that I had in meetings was, what a wonderful, wonderful gift this is for these people. But it's not going to work for me because I'm not worthy. That's the way I felt in my heart. I was so broken and so full of shame and And I had hurt so many people that I always felt like in the meetings, even in prison, in a room full of convicted felons, that if they really knew who I was, they wouldn't want me here either, you know? And, but I was running this game. I was trying to create this illusion. So I was walking around like I was, Mr. Important, and I was involved in every, I was in every 12-step group, in the therapy group. I was doing it all. And I was definitely not trying to get any of the benefits except getting out of prison. And the Catholic priest in the prison took notice of me. And he saw me, running around, and the word was, I was Joe Soba, right? And he approached me and he said, "How you doing? My name is Father Freitas. And I hear you doing well. I hear things are going well for you. I have a job opening in the chapel. And I'm looking for somebody to do a custodian job, simple job." And my initial and immediate thought was, this guy smokes cigarettes. He's got a phone in there. He's got coffee, I'm going to hustle this guy, right? I'm just going to manipulate the situation to benefit me, because unfortunately, at that time, I wasn't much, but I was all I thought about. And getting my way and getting what I wanted out of life was all I thought about. And so he gives me this job, and right away I'm manipulating him. Can you bring me this? Could you bring me that? And he said yes. He just my brother was in a singing group at the time, and they were just starting to make a little traction. And I said, "Father, my brother's in a singing group. Could you bring me a cassette tape?" And I'll explain what a cassette tape is later for anybody that doesn't know. And he did that. And about 2 weeks after I started working for him, he said to me, "Jim, we really need to have the chapel cleaned for Sunday Mass. Why don't you come to the vigil Mass on Saturday evening, and then afterwards you can clean?" And I didn't see him making a maneuver on me. I didn't see him hustling me to get me back to the foot of the cross. I didn't see any of that. I only, I was like, "Yeah, whatever, Father, can I have another cup of coffee?" Right. And then I'm in Mass. And I feel out of place, and I feel awkward, and I feel like I did when I was a kid. I felt like, I didn't know the prayers. I didn't know the responses. I didn't know when to stand or kneel or anything. But every Saturday night when I went, there was another guy who was a hardened criminal, bank robber, and a very dangerous person, but he grew up in the faith. And I would just watch him. After a few weeks, a month, Father Freitas came back to me and said, "Jim, we have a very special guest coming to this prison in 2 weeks." And I was like, "Really, Father, who's that?" And he said, "Mother Teresa is coming to this prison." Now, it's critical for me to share with you that I have this strong sense that Mother Teresa, Saint Mother Teresa, was sent there for me specifically, because I don't know of anyone else of the 800 guys that were there that had a life-changing experience that day when she came. But she came, and when she finally stood up to speak, she said things that I had never heard before. As a young man, I never heard that God loved me. I only heard God was going to get me. And I never heard that Jesus died for me. He died for me specifically. And it was in that moment that it all sort of came together for me, if you will. That feeling of I'm not worthy of this program or this gift started to slip away, because it almost right away, I started to be catechized and prepared to make my confirmation immediately, because I ran back to the priest and I said, "Father, I need to know more about that God, the God that loves me, and that Jesus died for me. I need to know about that. Can you tell me about that?" And he started to prepare me to make my confirmation. And he started to catechize me. And as we started to go through this process, I got transferred to another prison, and he called the priest in that prison. And he said, "Father, I got a special delivery coming for you from FedEx. His name is Jim Wahlberg, and this is where we are in the process." And that priest picked the ball up and started to work with me again. And then I got transferred again, and it came time for me to make my confirmation. But what happened to me in that process was that once I realized that I was no longer alone, that I had a God that loved me and that wanted the best for me. Once I realized that, because I never had that, I never felt that, all of the other stuff started to make sense to me. I started to dig in on the meetings. The guy who was the outside sponsor, Greg D from that group, he drove 100 miles to bring me a 1-year medallion. And he drove to another prison because I got transferred, and he brought the medallion, and he said, "Here you go, Jim, 365 days back to back. 365 days back to back. This is a gift for you." He didn't ask me for gas money. He didn't whine about the 100 miles he drove. He didn't do any of that, right? What he said to me is, I get to stay sober another day because I get to give it away, right? And I need to share with the people that are on this phone, that are folks that will go into prisons and will minister to men and women that are in these dark, deep holes, that are lost, that have no plans and nowhere to go when they leave. Long before we get to that part, we get to the part of they're just there, they're lost, alone, and broken, and they don't know that there's a God that loves them, right? When I feel loved, I have hope. If I have hope, then there's a possibility that I can change my life. But if I don't have hope, and that's what I had zero hope in all through juvenile detention, all through foster care, all through homelessness, all through the 5 years I was in prison. And when I got out, they actually came to my cell on my first sentence. I did 5 years. They came to my cell. I was in the hole. And the guard said to me, by our calculations, you got about 3 more days left, and then we're going to release you. You're all maxed out. You've done all your time. No parole, no nothing. You're going home on Monday. And I said, oh, no, wait a minute. By my calculations, I got another couple of months because I don't have anywhere to go. Can you imagine? I'm in prison. When Lisa said that, when she said that guy was walking out that door, and he honestly said to her in a very desperate way, I got nowhere to go. I know what that is, right? And if I got nowhere to go, then I have no hope. And if I have no hope, then I immediately need to consume something that is going to make me feel different about my circumstance. So I immediately need to pick up a drink, or I immediately need to pick up a drug, right? To make the reality of my situation go away. And that's what I did. I got out and I picked up a drink, and in 6 months I was back, and I was back for robbing a Boston police officer's house in a blackout. I had no idea what I did. I woke up in the police station, didn't know why I was there. I had blood all over me. If they would have told me that I had killed somebody, I would have believed them. I had no idea why I was there. I was hopeless and I was helpless, and I had nowhere to turn. I had nowhere to turn. My family had given up on me. I had no friends. I had stolen from every friend I ever had. And I had no God. I had nowhere to turn. I didn't know that that Christ was there all that time, just waiting for me to even peek in his direction so he could get his loving arms around me. Right. I had no sense of any of that. I was hopeless and helpless. And people came into that prison. There was a woman, Dot Walsh, who was just she was a part of a Catholic ministry, and she was just like, how can I help you? She wasn't beating people over the head. She was, how can I help you? And she connected me with another person that connected me with another person that just kindly and gently started to prepare me to take what I had learned over the last couple of years in prison, learned of my faith and learned of recovery and the relationship that I had built with God. And how was I going to now take that out and use it and rely on it and participate in it in the world? Because I feel like I always had this reservation in the back of my mind. I remember going to the parole board. I went to the parole board, And I went in and I said, easy does it, keep it simple. I'm all better now. I'm sober. I've been sober for a couple of years. And even my mother even wrote them a letter. And in the letter, she wrote, before you stands a man of God. You can let him go now. It's safe. He's not coming back. And I'll be honest with you, she believed it. I wasn't sure I believed it. And they definitely didn't believe it because they kind of laughed. They had my file and they went, okay, yeah, whatever. You haven't gotten any trouble since you've been here. We'll see you when you get back. That sounds like a terrible thing to say to somebody, but I wasn't offended. My track record was I was coming back, but a day at a time, the people in AA loved me until I could love myself. Evelene was saying, that she had all the answers. She had all the answers, and the people would just laugh and they would just love her, right? And just tell her to keep coming. And I can remember coming out of prison, even with a strong faith and some fairly solid recovery. The thing is that unlike anybody else, it's this additional element of where it's like we're stepping out onto another planet, if you will, right? Getting out of prison and coming out. If you're not transitioning down and down, getting close to the streets and getting reacclimated, you're coming from behind the walls to the streets, where you come from living a very different way. And now you have to transition into society, and you have to learn society's ways again. And without help, without the good people on this call, without the Evelenes and the Lisas, and the people in the meetings and the people at the job training programs and the housing programs, it's a mountain that it's hard. It's hard to climb. It's so hard to climb. And for me to have those support mechanisms in place was critical. But if I gotta be honest, nothing was more critical than having a relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. It was nothing more critical, because that for the first time in my life, that feeling of terminal loneliness started to slip away, right? Now when it looked like I was talking to myself, because I did that quite a bit, I wasn't talking to myself anymore. I was praying. I was asking God for help. I was asking God for guidance, and I felt his love, and I felt love for myself. So I'm sure that I didn't cover any of the things that I was supposed to, but I want to spend the last couple of seconds of my time thanking each and every person that took the time to be on this call. I want to thank each and every person that stepped out of a comfort zone and stepped into a prison or a jail in hopes of serving others, right? Giving of your time, treasure, and talents, right, to serve others is what we are called to do as Christians. We are called to serve. And, sometimes this work is not like, I like to paint. And I don't mean like paint on canvas, because I'm not an artist, but like I like to paint my house, right? Because when I put the paint on the wall, I can see the results. When you do this work, it takes a long time sometimes to see any results, right? You walk in and out of these prisons thinking, am I really having an effect? Am I really, is there anything good coming of this? Maybe I could use my time somewhere else. There's nowhere else better that you can spend your time serving than behind the walls of a jail or a prison, where people have been thrown away and discarded, and in many, many cases are just broken children. They're just broken children that were never able to heal, and just, they got a bad playbook. They were handed a bad playbook. I always joke around and tell people, I grew up in a tough neighborhood. I had a really tough paper route. I like to tell people that I had a tough paper route, right? My life was tough. My life was difficult. My life was lonely, and I was full of despair. and the good people that are on this call, people just like this, and for me in particular, the men on this call with the collars around their neck that have given their life to Christ saved me. They were a reflection of Jesus for me. And I pray for Father Freitas, who I know is in heaven now, regularly. I just can't thank you all enough for giving of your time, giving of yourself.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you for carrying the message to us, to everybody on this call. I'm going to just turn to Lisa and Evelene. If you got a quick response to anything you've heard already, Evelene, and then come up with Lisa.
One thing that Jim had said that kind of stood out to me is like I said, we meet them where they're at. And we do understand that sometimes it takes 60, 90, a couple months for them to really kind of get that message. And I tell the guys all the time, it's like, I don't care what brings you to class, just show up. Something's going to sink in. And, like what I'm teaching may not affect them, but, maybe the chaplain in the Bible study or, the education class might. And it's like, just show up. And we have seen so many transformative moments through that. And Jim, thank you for sharing your testimony, because that was just amazing. It just reminds me of why we do what we do. Yeah. We need to build into the less fortunate. Not every time, but most of the time I go to work, it's like, I think of Matthew 25, it's, that you did for the least of these, you did for me. And, I try to see God in every single person that I meet with and that I work with, because that reflects back on me and help them see it in themselves is the real thing. I teach them a lot about, mental health issues, but also like in the spiritual matter, it's like, what is blocking you from God? We mentioned about the percentage of people. I would say probably about 80% of the people that come to us have addiction issues and or mental health issues, PTSD. And we really try to get to some of the underlying causes, and help them see that they do have value and they do have worth because of the years and years. If I tell people all the time, like, if you sat with any of these individuals, you would understand why they are the way they are. But, I've been, given the gift to be able to help them become who they're supposed to be in God's image. And I'm so blessed to be a part of these types of ministries. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Evelene.
Yeah, they and everyone speaking, one of the main pieces is connection. When I recognized that when I started being able to connect with myself, I was able to connect with other people, identified, recognizing the fact that we are more alike than different. I might be out here and you may be in there, but there's something that connects us. And just being able to share me with others and to let them know things. What are you, asking them the question, what do you want? What is it that you want to do? How do you want to go about doing it? And how can I support you? And just being willing and, to meet them where they are and allow them to say what they have to say and, and do the things that they need to do in order to improve their lives. Because as Lisa said earlier in my bio, I can't fix that person, but I can sit with them and allow them an opportunity to talk through whatever it is that they feel like they need to fix for themselves. That's where the healing comes in. And ISP offers that opportunity to people. And I would, I look forward to hearing about ISP being able to go into the prisons and being able to share the work that we do with those that are locked up. I have not had that experience of being locked up behind bars, but I was locked up in my own self. I was, which is one of the worst prisons to be in when I am locked down and in prison within my own head and in my own soul and in my heart. So I want to thank you all for allowing me this opportunity.
Evelene, you really nailed it. In fact, I've been trying to jot down a couple of words here that I'm listening to all three of you. the biggest letters on my little pad here are connection. Because I think what we heard in so many ways is about a life-giving connection that in the best possible cases begins when we're inside. And that grace can come in the form of welding class, or it can come in just the realization I can't do 9 years. I've got to do something else. But then what? But then the connections, I'm open to connections, because left to my own thinking, it ultimately takes me to a place where I say by my actions, I'll show you, I'll kill me. I think it points out too the really how high the stakes are to maintain that connection as people are leaving, because it is a frightening thing for people to go, and in many ways they're set up to reoffend, if only because they don't know anything else. And I think Jim showed us a real the secret to the spiritual life. And it's finally gratitude. There was a movie out, 10 years or more, 15 years ago, maybe. It was filmed in my hometown. It wasn't all about violence in Detroit, Michigan, but it was called the Gran Torino. And if you remember the Clint Eastwood
Yes.
kind of curmudgeon character, at one point is going to show this young Asian neighbor what it means to be a real man. And he shows him his garage and all these tools up on the pegboard. And the kid is wide-eyed. And he said, wow, this is really something. But Clint kind of says out of the corner of his mouth, well, listen, kid, any man worth his salt can fix anything. He's got vice grips, duct tape, and WD-40. I think Jim helps see the gratitude is the WD-40 of the soul. It's what we spray on things that are stuck or rusty, and they begin to move again. And it reestablishes a connection that was beginning to get frayed before it can really take us to bad places. God bless you all. Father George, I think you're going to mentor the questions.
Sure. Thank you again, Cardinal Tobin. Several people asked questions, and I wanted to mention first a woman named Katie asked what kind of training is needed for prison ministry. Well, Katie, you came to the right place, because Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition was founded in order to help people get the kind of training that I never got when I was starting out as a prison chaplain. So if you go to our website, Catholic Prison Ministries, all one word, .org, you'll find a wealth of resources. It can also direct you to some online training and other places around the country where you can get the kind of the basic skills you need. But the most important thing is just showing up and going in and being there with the men and women in the prison system or the jails. Someone else asked a good question about what are the three main barriers to successful reentry? And I'd ask the panelists if you could maybe say one or two of what you see, or maybe Mark, or if you think about what you experienced yourself, if you had been in, say, Jim or Lisa, in terms of what the barriers were for you.
I'd say one of the number one is resources, and not even being aware of the resources that are out there and the supports. Another is, the background slows them down. We do look for agencies that hire regardless of their background, because they use it as an excuse sometimes. But I mean, it is, in reality, a truth that, if you have a background, it is a little bit harder to get a job. But we help them look at it from a different perspective. And, we do also encourage entrepreneurship, and developing those skills and seeing themselves being successful. So those are a couple of the things that we, see. And of course, housing, that's always a big barrier. So we work with the different agencies in our community to get them a place to live that's safe and supportive.
Yeah, I think that, having examples in their path of it working for other people is so critical. You know, a lot of the time for me, I was, you know, I had these examples because of the programs like Lisa's program that I was working with. It was called SPAN. It was a Boston prison reentry program. I had examples in front of me of people that had gone through SPAN, had been able to use the tools that were provided for them and use the support that they got as well. They weren't just handed, you know, information. They were taken step by step. Here, come, you're going to go and you're going to meet this guy and his name is this. And he's going to be there at 10 o'clock. It's important for you to show up on time and to you know, to have that belief of no matter how much I doubt myself, right? There are examples. People have done it. I built a life and a career. Sometimes I'd look around. I started making movies, right? I never made a movie in my life. I started looking around at the people that were making movies. I said, if that guy can make a movie, then I can make a movie, right? Because I over time built confidence over time, but it's that time that is so critical. So for prison ministers, people that are going in that first stage that are maybe don't have the gifts of the resources that someone like Lisa has, right? Trying to transmit that love and that you matter and that you have worth, it starts there. For me, I won't speak for anybody else. It started there for me. Once I started to think I was worthy of any of these opportunities that were being put in front of me, I didn't think I could do any of them, right? But people convinced me that I was worthy of the opportunity. I didn't think I could do, I didn't have any viable skills, not a single viable skill except the gift of gab. It's all I had, you know? And I got out of prison. And the first job I got, I was blessed to get a job working in a public detox. And my job was sweeping the floors, cleaning up after people who weren't able to control their bodily functions. That was my job. And I was really good at it because I felt so comfortable around this population. These were my people, you know. I was blessed to be put in a position. And Lisa said something about that. You said something that was so critical, connecting with opportunities with people that knew where you were coming from and were okay with it, that still believed that you deserved an opportunity. The more people you can be around that believe that you deserve an opportunity and that whenever possible, that you are a child of God, right? When those people are in your path, man, chances are really, really, I love your chances. I love your chances. And the one thing that I talk to guys, mostly guys, but women too, coming out of that situation is wherever possible, if you can find something that you are passionate about, right? Whatever it is, if you find something that you'll jump out of bed in the morning instead of crawl out of bed in the morning and grudgingly go do, you can find something you're passionate about. And if at all possible, that passion includes helping others, I love your chances. I love your chances of being successful. And I was blessed with that. I was blessed with people I worked in St. Francis homeless shelter in downtown Boston. It was a day shelter. And they had a day center. And, you know, the average person wasn't comfortable in this surrounding. I used to sit in the middle of this room with 150 people that many of them slept outside last night. Many of them had severe mental illness, playing dominoes, just treating people the way they deserve to be treated, like people. And there'd be all this craziness going on around me, and I would just be so comfortable. I was way more comfortable there than I would be in the staff meeting in the morning, right? Because those were my people. So if you can find something that you're passionate about, I love your chances of success. That would be my number one advice. Sorry for the long answers.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. Cardinal Tobin, did you want to respond to any of what you just heard?
No, I'm just, well, maybe just the experience. If you feel like you're at home, and I think it's a progressive thing. It's not instant tapioca. I was fortunate as a young priest working in Detroit to know a Monsignor that really made a lot of difference in the lives of street people and poor people. I was in a neighboring parish, and I love the guy. He's like my teacher. And I remember once as he neared the end of his life, I was with him in the hospital. And I said, Monsignor, how did you do it? How did you get to love the poor the way you did? He thought for a minute, and he said, well, Joe, when I was a young priest, I thought it was my duty, my responsibility, my job. And then I did it for a while, and I found out I liked it. And finally, I found out I'm one of them. And I think that I heard a brother of Father Williams talk here in Jersey last week, and Greg Boyle from East LA. And he said over and over again, don't settle for forgiveness. He said, strive for kinship. And kinship is just being around and seeing people for who they are, and not for even who they think they are, but who God thinks they are.
Thank you.
And that's where the kinship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the great reward of prison ministry. And I'll finish with this. I remember in 2016 having a moment with Pope Francis. And I said, thank you so much for this year of mercy. And you know who really gets it? He said, the cons get it. Because they know they don't have any bragging rights, but they can receive mercy. And those are the kind of people I want to be akin to.
Thank you. Since you mentioned my brother Jesuit, Greg Boyle, I just happen to have his book right here. So I highly recommend. This is his third book, and it's beautiful. And so just check it out. The Whole Language by Father Greg Boyle, S.J. Also, I'm thinking in the few minutes that we have left, if Jared or Kara could put up some of the events that are coming up, so people can know about those. And while they're doing that, I just want to mention again, many of the comments people have said in the chat have been very complimentary toward our panel, and I think you can follow along and see those too. If you have any desire to go deeper into your skill level of prison ministry, or if you're starting out, if you're doing it for a long time, go to our website, Catholic Prison Ministries .org, and again, you'll find many resources, webinars that will help you get started. Well, here we go with our upcoming events. So in 2 more days, we have the Prison Contemplative Fellowship. That will be, go to the website for that information. And then on November 9th, another brother Jesuit, Dr. Patrick St. John, will be speaking on the spiritual work of racial justice. He's an author and an advocate. And then on the 17th of November, Dr. Martha Shuping will speak about healing after abortion. All of these things are really impact the work that we do in working not only with men and women in prison, but with returning citizens as well as the people who work in prison, the guards, the staff, the correctional officers, and the families of all these people. So those are some resources for you. There's also this online training that we have that is kind of really really helping you to really hone your professional skills as a minister in this kind of ministry. And so again, you can find out by going to our website about these training opportunities. Also, please note on our website, we have a donate button, and we at this point we rely on donations as we're really starting out incorporating and trying to build this ministry around the country. And so anything you can do to help us, we greatly appreciate it. It will help us to continue to develop these networks. And one of the things I heard Jim mention a couple names, like Father Freitas, and someone else, another Jim wrote in the comment he had done time in Massachusetts and mentioned Deacon John Mannion and Sister Ruth, all these people who are very close to my heart as well. And it's just, we're connected by these wonderful souls, some of them still with us, some of them in heaven, but we're celebrating All Saints. So
Amen.
we are surrounded by so many wonderful people praying with us and for us and working hard to just kind of reach out and help these men and women who, like Jim, were lost. And yet it's so beautiful for me as a prison chaplain to hear stories like yours, Jim and Lisa, because you make the work become drudgery sometimes. You see more failures, unfortunately, than you do successes. But every success is just such a gift. So thank you. I'm thinking all of you who may not have had a chance to have your question answered, or maybe hadn't quite formulated a question, you can reach out to us on our website and continue the conversation. And finally, I just want to thank all of you, Lisa, Jim, Evelene, and Cardinal Tobin, for your time, for your experience, for your compassion. Really, especially Cardinal, representing the leadership in the church and the example of Pope Francis and his great love for prison ministry also. It's so important to hear that and to know that the church is really also working to help people who are struggling with addiction and people and their loved ones as well. So I'm at that point, I would just ask you, Cardinal Tobin, if you would close us in prayer.
God, we thank you for your closeness to us, for the way you penetrate our formidable defenses and knock down what needs to be knocked down in our lives, but always to build us up. We thank you for the way you've spoken through your daughters and sons on this call. We ask you that when our arms grow weary, there'll be others to support them. When the darkness threatens, we'll feel your light. And then we recall that you love each one of us as if there was only one to love. We praise you this night, and we will welcome you in the dawn. Thank you. Amen.
Thank you, Cardinal Tobin. Thank you all for participating in this event tonight. And be sure to come back to our website and look for our future events that we're planning to offer in the coming months and in the spring as well. So thank you. God bless you all. Good night.
I've been involved in prison ministry for a long time, but until I joined my current parish and near the same time became aware of the Catholic Prison Ministries Coalition, I was always the lone wolf in my volunteer capacity. So learning to develop this ministry as a parish-based ministry and to do so with CPMC's guidance and resources has given me such a deeper path for my own faith formation and a way to elevate the ministry to include our entire church family so that we bring intentionality into our efforts as a faith community to bridge the gap between prison walls and church walls. So that's no easy task for any church community, but doing so with CPMC's formation tools and resources has been a real blessing for all of us.